and Jim Carrey leans over and uses my ashtray in character as Tony Clifton. And then he looks around. He does like the look around. Hey, kid. And so I lean in. Do you want to get famous? I said, yeah. Do you want to get rich? I said, yeah. He goes, give me your hand. I give him my hand. He takes the cigarette butt, puts it in my hand, closes my hand, and says, go home and clone me!
Say what you know.
Hey, Brian Lally here, Hollywood native, and I got the Rona. Voice is a little sexy, kind of Brenda Vaccaro-ish, even though none of you young people know who the Brenda Vaccaro is. This is, and you're about to see, Brian Lally, Hollywood native, the show. As always, I'm sitting here with my partner in crime, the man that made this all happen, Scott Williams. Scott, who do we have on the show today?
Today, Brian, we have a great guest, Jami Philbrick.
Jami Philbrick?
Jami.
The journalist?
The one.
The actor, the entertainer. Jami started out as an actor in high school, college, put on some great plays, written by Laurence Fishburne. He's got quite a few other great stories. Anything I'm forgetting here?
Just a note to listeners, we recorded this episode some time ago. Some of the references will sound a little bit old, but actually very interesting because Jami, as a journalist, gets to see movies ahead of time.
Jami brought his dog Murphy along with him. Was that a mistake? We're going to find out. Not from me. I love the Merf. We've cut out some references to past girlfriends, but everything that's on here is interesting, and he's a hell of a raconteur, so enjoy the time.
You know Desus and Mero? Do you watch them?
What?
Desus and Mero, they have a talk show on Showtime.
No.
It's super good. They're hilarious.
African-American gentlemen?
They both are, indeed.
Yeah,
Yes.
from the East.
From Brooklyn, yes.
Yeah.
You know the show.
Yeah.
So they had Goldblum on as a
Right.
guest. And it was amazing because they shoot in like a bodega set.
Right.
It's not a real bodega.
No?
But I don't know that Jeff was confused whether it was a set or a real bodega. And so there was a lot of, yes. Oh, what are those? Yeah. You know, it was a lot of that.
Before New Year's, he was driving with his wife to a pop-up clothing thing.
Yeah.
And he said, I've never been there before. I said, oh. I said, Jeff, wherever you go, you will find something interesting.
It's true. I mean, he made a whole show about it.
And what do you think he said to that?
Oh, Brian Lally, yes. I will find something interesting. Yes.
Yes. So,
I am looking forward to the new Jurassic, though. And I didn't really care for the last two that much.
Last 7.
Yeah, I mean, the last 3.
I try every episode to say that I was in the second one. So
You were?
I try
You were?
I try to put that out there.
Should we do a LA Confidential retrospective? Should we talk about the... Do you know your boy just got arrested?
Who's that, Kyle?
Cromwell.
Oh, that's not my son.
No, your boy from...
Cromwell got arrested?
Well, he gets arrested on purpose a lot for political things. He's been doing that for years.
Oh, okay.
And, like a Jane Fonda. And he just did something where...
He's a communist.
He walked into a Starbucks in Manhattan
Right.
and superglued his finger to the counter and wouldn't leave. I don't know. He was berating them about almond milk. Something about almond milk.
Yeah, that is also communist.
What's the controversy with almond milk?
I have no idea.
There's some
I've
kind
never
of
heard of it.
controversy that it's not appropriate. I don't know. I don't know what he was.
It's not appropriate?
I don't know. He was complaining about almond milk.
It had been,
like it was
it had been talking about the other employees.
Well, no, he
Is
thought
that
it was
what's happening in
the
an inappropriate way?
but-
Almond milk looks too much like
It
jizz.
was something. No, it was something about the environment and the almond. I don't know. I thought almond milk was better for the
When
environment.
I put this
but
on
it's-
my wife's. Oh!
Oh. Did we have a biter?
Yep.
Yep. All right, Merf. Yep. Were our feet dangling?
Well, yeah, our feet were moving because I sit here.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So I got bit.
Did you get bit hard?
I got bit pretty hard.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my leather Converse, which I think stopped it from getting,
From going through. Right.
going through.
I forgot that.
But
is a,
we're going to find out if I start feeling liquid in my shoe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So Murphy may have to just be a little farther away.
Yeah, that we can do that.
Yeah.
Here, let's move you right here. There you go. Sorry, that is a hazard that happens.
Well, I found that out.
Yeah, sorry, I should have
I knew it was.
We're going to have to play that.
Yeah.
I think there's a highlight clip right
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do we have any footage of the?
Sorry, Merf.
Do we have a camera that catches under the table?
Well, you know,
Because I may need that in
We
court.
just need your reaction. Even mine, you kind of scared me.
Yeah. Well, it didn't scare you as much as getting bit by a big dog viciously under the table.
Well,
So-
I'm sorry, he got scared.
These black and white Converse are now black, white, and red.
Well, he's had all those shots, so.
Yeah, I haven't.
Yep.
So I might,
So maybe he'll get something
I
for
might
you.
have to get one. So
All right. Come here.
Okay.
I had no idea. Yeah, I'm fine. You went to college in Boston?
Yeah, so I went to a junior college in upstate Massachusetts called Dean College.
Right.
And I majored in acting there. And then I transferred to Emerson College in Boston and was a theater major there with Kristen Linkletter. Do you remember? Have you heard her name before? She was the big voice and articulation, Free Your Voice. She wrote the book Free Your Voice.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. And
You
she
can tell
ran,
by the way I don't enunciate anything that
she
and
ran
I are friends.
the Shakespeare Company up in the Berkshires
Oh, wow.
for years. So yeah, she was the head of the department when I was there, and then moved to LA, and then very quickly started to play House West, which is where Brian was a teacher. But you were never my teacher, right?
I don't think so,
I don't
because I
think
think
so.
you would have gone farther as an actor.
Oh yeah, if you were my teacher.
So you started out here, and I have to say that you went into it. You got into it. You know, there's not that many people that
do you
did.
mean? No. But I mean, expand. What do you mean? I got into it.
You started acting and putting on shows and doing what a lot of people don't do. A lot of people come to LA and they're happy to be in class. And I always say when I'm teaching, if you're not working towards something, you're just showing up for class. But you tried the best of your ability to work towards something, to put up a project, to further your career. You were young and to try to become a professional, you know, right away. So that's what I'm talking about. But we've known, I've probably gone through thousands of students who just want to say they got rich parents. They just want to say they just came, they showed up, and they're living in a $3,000 a month apartment. They don't have a job, and they're actors. I was here yesterday, and I was telling Scott about, you know, the production values of Riff Raff. You did a good job as an actor, and obviously the sets. And people don't understand why we're saying this. We didn't have sets at Playhouse West. They never had sets, except Graham Elwood in Cash Flow. I don't know if you ever saw that. And he put a lot of money into that, but you had a full professional set, which really, I think, helps at times. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't always have to be, and there's obviously plays you can do that have sparse props and furniture on stage, but yours called for it, and it was great. And I did talk about during the summer in the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah.
And you had to turn off the air conditioning because you guys came in with torches or lighters. Or...
Was it? Yeah, because we had to light. So this play is called Riff Raff. It was written by Laurence Fishburne, and I produced and Titus Welliver, who's on Bosch Legacy, was also in it, and I played his part. And it takes place in Brooklyn in a abandoned building, sort of a crack den, like a homeless person crack den, and so. The theater where we were doing this play was almost perfect for it already, right? We just needed graffiti on the walls. So what we...
Well, yeah, but you had trash all over
Well, we had
the
trash
place.
all...
I
Yeah.
mean,
No,
don't make me
but
say that you had good production
No,
values.
but I'm
and then
saying
we said
that
we came in and painted a wall.
No, but I'm saying that the theater was all... You know, we were lucky in that what we needed to create could be created there.
Right.
And, you know, and it didn't need a lot of work, but a little of the work that we did do, which was really interesting, was we built... basically dummy walls.
Right.
So we built walls to put up against the walls, got the paint of the actual theater to paint the walls the same color as the theater.
Right.
And then I got a graffiti artist to come in and just graffiti those fake walls, basically. So we would just rest them up against the background.
But it looked like a crack den, and if there's one thing I know about.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. No, we worked hard on that show, and we ran it for about a year, and it was a great cast, and it was a lot of fun to do. I played a heroin addict, and I OD at the end of the play. So the last 10 minutes of the play, I'm just dead on stage, and I have two great monologues as an actor. Oh my God, amazing monologues. at the end. One is while I'm shooting Up for the Last Time, and then OD. And so, yeah, it was a really fun play to do, and a lot of work, but it was a great experience.
Yeah.
A lot of politics as well, but.
Well, always.
Yeah, but it was all of that was a great like learning experience.
And who was in it with you, Alfonso?
It was Alfonso Williams II as Laurence Fishburne role, which is Mikey 2020, and then Van Gunter.
Oh, okay.
Van Gunter as the Heavy D role.
And Alfonso almost killed you one night, literally?
Well, yes. So it was physical. It's a physical play, and the two characters are sort of my character and the other lead character kind of against. They find out that they're half brothers throughout the course of the play, but they are very much at each other's throats through all of it. And there's one scene where he kind of grabs me by the shirt and puts me up against the wall. And so I don't remember exactly what the argument was, but it had something to do again with booking the theater and when we were going to do the shows. And I had the attitude of like that, we've worked 2 years on this play. You know what I mean? Like, this is our baby.
Right.
We have to deal with when the theater is available and other people are doing shows and da-da-da. So if they tell us this weekend is available to do the show, like, we're doing the show that weekend.
Right.
And whatever your other plans are, like, work around doing the show.
Right.
But it was like his anniversary and he and his wife were going away, and I was just, and I was young at the time, and I didn't have a wife, and I was 26, and I was like, hey, listen, if you want to be an actor, like, this is what we're doing. This is when we're doing the show. No, I know. I mean, I see the other point of view now as well. I'm not saying I was wrong, but I see both points of view. So the story, though, is that he was not happy with me saying, I don't care if it's your anniversary. You need to be available to do the show. And I love Alfonso. I hope he doesn't hear this.
No, Alfonso's great.
Let's just say he took it out on me during the show, because instead of lifting me up by my shirt, he lifted me up with one hand by my throat. And I was really scared in the moment, like, whoa, that's not what we rehearsed. What's happening here?
Those are things you can't buy.
Yeah, you can't buy that.
You
that was
can't
pretty
buy
awesome.
as an actor. But I totally agree with you. I mean, I've canceled so many things in my life. It's like the show's going on.
Yeah. It was sort of inundated in us very early at Playhouse. Like, if this is what you want to do, like, this is what comes first, and da-da-da. And I'm amazed by, and again, let's not name names, but there's an actor we know who, is a successful working actor, gets small roles, good small roles and good things, and makes a living as an actor, and was willing to throw that all away because of his views on vaxxing and not wanting to get vaxxed. And it's like, that's not how we were taught. Like, we were taught, you get a role, you're lucky, and you do everything you can to do it. If that means you have to get a vaccination, you get a vaccination.
Right.
It seems like that attitude has changed with actors to where, like, acting's not the most important thing anymore.
When I first started acting, I was older than most of the kids, and I had a wife and a baby and a full-time job, and someone would say, let's rehearse tomorrow at 6 a.m. I get up at 6 a.m.
Right.
Someone would say, I live in Venice. And I'd say, okay, I'm driving from Studio City to Venice. You didn't think about it.
Right.
Oh, my fucking God, you can't get people to go around the block. You know what I mean?
Is that a thing now? Is it hard to get people like to? Because I remember like one of the things for us, like even when we were starting in intermediate, it was like pounded in us. You have to rehearse at least an hour a day.
Yeah.
A couple hours. Get in a couple. Call people during your breaks.
Yeah.
Go over to the house. I mean, we used to drive to people's houses, just come in with doors and activities just to get it done, and you know what I mean. Go back. Do 2 or 3 in a day.
Yeah.
And, do the actors not even do that anymore?
No.
Wow.
I mean, I still teach like that. There was a kid I had in class. And he said he was a champion swimmer. He was from Florida, and he said he was a champion swimmer. I said, how often did you train? He said, 6 hours a day. I said, if you bring that to your acting, then, and he was a good-looking kid. He was a swimmer, a surfer, so he was young, real good shape. And I said, if you bring that to your acting, you'll start working. You just can't avoid it. You know what I mean? So he was in class for 6 months. How many times did he rehearse?
Once.
0.
Right.
0. But he used to get drunk and drive to people's houses and like rear end people on the way. And nobody ever busted him on it. He'd bump into people at stop signs and stuff because he was drunk. But no. And he said, yeah, I know what it's like to train 6 hours a day. I go, 6 hours a day? That's what Larry Moss talks about. You'll be a fucking superstar. Right. You know what I mean?
I remember with Riff Raff because the theater where we would do it, like they'd have classes all day long, so there was only limited time when you could get the theater, and other people needed the theater to rehearse as well. And we had because there are guns in the play and there's other things, we had an issue where a window was open at someone's apartment when we were rehearsing, and the cops actually came because they saw guys with guns yelling at each other. And so at that point, I was given keys to the theater and told, like, you guys can rehearse. We don't want anyone having the cops called on, like, just rehearse here. But because of the hours, like, we would have to, maybe we'd have class from 7 to 10 and then rehearse from 10 to 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
Or we would get at the theater at 6 a.m. and rehearse till 9, till the 9 o'clock class came in.
Right.
That's how we got that show done.
Right. But that's what I talked about, and I don't mind talking about again, is that, what the fuck is I going to say? Uh-oh, I'm having a stroke. I'm running out of blood. I talked about, the commitment to rehearsing.
Right.
The commitment that it didn't matter what time of day it was, but I talk about, that's what I was going to say. I was going to talk about the Brits like I always do. I used to say they're stealing all our parts.
Right.
But they're not. They're earning all our parts.
Right.
Because they go to class 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, for a year, 2 years, and they train with everything.
And they can actually do accents.
Right. But they train with everything, and then you come here and people are going to class and they can't rehearse for half an hour between class.
Right.
But the ones who do really, really benefit and really progress.
Yeah.
So I've had a great group of, I've had many classes with great students at Lola's, and the ones who really, but it takes someone from the class to move it along. And there was nobody better than Kaylee Chase that I had in my class that would put together.
Set the pace of the class,
say we're going to rehearse.
Yeah, right.
And then when your peers say to you we're going to rehearse, they were rehearsing in a park. They didn't want to drive to each other's house wherever they live. She was up in Laurel Canyon, people were in Culver City. That's fine. You're rehearsing in a park like in downtown Culver City. I think it's the same place where the Actors Gang was for a while. There's a building there the Actors Gang was in. But they were getting together in a park to rehearse, and it was like, do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But she was also from New York. She went to school in the city, and it's different, when you have that kind of vibe of finding a place to rehearse is a little different.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it was so different, 20 years ago.
Sure.
When I was doing it. Like, it was just the attitude,
right?
The focus. And I bring it back because it's interesting because I recently was asked to mentor journalism students at Emerson College in the LA program. And it was interesting because I don't remember, I remember being and Emerson has a Los Angeles program, and I did it my last semester in 97 and stayed. But I remember, I couldn't wait to get out of college. I couldn't wait to start my career, to start my life. It was all I cared about. These kids are terrified.
Right.
They're scared, and I get it. They also had the pandemic that they're dealing with, but they are scared to death. One girl asked me, will my life be okay? I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? What? But they're just terrified. They're like, I'd rather just move back in with my parents. I don't want to, look for a job. I'm like, I couldn't wait. Moving in with my parents was the last thing I wanted to do at that age.
Right.
And I'm sure the pandemic had a lot to do with it, but it's different. These kids, and it was weird too. I mean, these kids weren't even born when I graduated college.
Yeah, the isolation factor of the pandemic and all these classes going to Zoom and whatnot, I feel like is another reason why maybe actors have gotten more comfortable just being behind a laptop versus having
even just doing, junkets for the most part. Some in-person junkets are starting to come back press-wise, but for the most part, they've been all virtual, and I love it. I love doing it virtual. I don't want to drive to a hotel. I met all of them. I don't need to meet them again. It's fine.
So I want to get into that.
On Zoom, it's fine by me.
No, I want to get into that. All the, people don't even know everybody that you've interviewed. Horseback riding with Johnny Depp.
let's leave it. I don't want it to sound that it was very Johnny Depp heavy over here. Like,
Well,
but it was a couple of Johnny Depp events.
Well, he might be exonerated.
Yeah, he may be exonerated.
So you can say that. You don't have to be worried because you're a journalist now and you're afraid that someone. I heard him say he liked Johnny Depp.
Cancel him.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't get Johnny Depp.
No. But no. I've interviewed.
So you acted, then you you moved over into journalism.
Right.
You love everything about movies. You love everything about. I know
movies and TV. And, and I love superheroes. And
right.
Yeah.
Right.
All that stuff.
So, but I know some of the stories, and I want to hear about working on Man on the Moon. And,
Man on the Moon.
And what happened when you were in the...
Okay, so I was doing the acting thing for a while, and I did Riff Raff, and I got to do a couple of featured extras. Yeah, extras or featured extras, and have a little line here or there. I was actually in Old School. Will Ferrell's brother-in-law in the wedding scene. My line was cut, but that was like the biggest kind of part I got. Like I had a trailer and all that kind of stuff. Then I was in Boogie Nights. I'm in the opening scene. And I was in American Pie in a cafeteria scene, and then Man on the Moon.
Man, Brian, you know what I love doing?
Yeah.
I love tapping that subscribe button.
I love it too, son. And just like all your dates, I tap it last. But nothing's as good as tapping this button.
You see Brian here? He's not always doing the best. Financially, mentally, physically, for sure. You want to help keep Brian off the streets of Hollywood? There's a way you can help. Join us on Patreon. You want to tell him what we got on there, buddy?
Yes, we have the general admission, we have the backstage, and we have the VIP all-access pass. So please, join today. I'm due for a bath.
In the arms of the angel,
So I worked the last 3 days of production on Man on the Moon. They were shooting that final scene where it's after Andy Kaufman dies, but Tony Clifton appears performing at the Comedy Store. It was actually in real life, that happened, but it was Bob Zamuda, his partner by that point, that Paul Giamatti plays, was pretending. Now in the movie, they pan the camera over and you see actually Paul Giamatti there, so they give you the idea of like, oh, is Andy maybe not dead? But it's all, that's all just for the movie. So it was 3 days, Comedy Store, Jim Carrey in Tony Clifton makeup and attire. And because he was, if you saw the Netflix documentary that he did, he was Andy as Tony the entire time that I was working with him. So he's on the stage of the Comedy Store, and I was in the front. They sat me in the front. So for 3 days, I'm in the front table, and you can't see me in the actual movie because of the angles of the camera. But in the documentary, because there was a camera behind him, you can actually see me right in the front. And so, I was just hanging out for 3 days, and they were smoking fake cigarettes, but I think this was 98, so I think they hadn't passed the law yet in LA for cigarette smoking in bars and restaurants.
Oh no!
So I think everyone was smoking. Right. It was kind of like everyone got to smoke. It was like being at a casino in Vegas. So everyone gets to smoke. So there was an ashtray on my table, and this was like the third day, and it was going to be the final day of shooting on the entire film. And he comes out and he sings, "Once you da 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 da."
I will survive.
I will survive. I will survive. That's what it was. So Tony Clifton singing "I Will Survive" at the end. So he'd done it already from a bunch of different angles and blah blah blah. And so he and Milos Forman are talking on stage in between shooting, and I'm sitting right there. They didn't clear out the extras, and so they're arguing about something, not arguing, but, talking about something. And Jim Carrey leans over and uses my ashtray in character as Tony Clifton. And then he looks around. He does like the look around. "Hey, kid." And so I lean in. "Do you want to get famous?" I said, "Yeah." "Do you want to get rich?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Give me your hand." give him my hand. He takes the cigarette butt, puts it in my hand, closes my hand, and says, "Go home and clone me." And that was my interaction with Jim Carrey. So then once we had captured his side of performing the song, then they needed to capture the band and close-ups of Paul Giamatti and the audience. So it didn't matter at that point what Jim Carrey was doing to perform to, amuse us, as long because they were getting reaction shots. So he did, and it was a couple of days before Halloween, he did an impression of Tim Curry in Rocky Horror Picture Show doing the Transylvanian, whatever that song's called. He did Tony Bennett doing I Left My Heart in San Francisco. He did Sammy Davis Jr. doing Candyman, right? Candyman?
Yeah, the Candyman.
And he did Kermit the Frog, The Rainbow Connection. Yeah. And it was amazing. And then the band, and then at the end of the last day, they brought it, and it's in the documentary, they bring out the cake and Danny DeVito and Milos. And that was the only time that Jim broke character and kind of talked to the audience. And so, okay, flash forward years later, right before
but wait a minute.
Okay.
What did they miss in the movie and the documentary? The most important part of Andy Kaufman's life.
Did he have a sister and they don't mention it? Is it something like that? Like they erased the family member?
Had to do with Brian Lally.
Oh, okay. So, well, I don't know.
I taught him how to play Pac-Man.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. At the deli.
Yes.
Yes.
Jerry's Famous Deli.
Well, so flash forward.
Oh, we're passing over that?
Well, I'm trying to give you the punchline of the story. You're interrupted. You're killing the story.
I'm killing the story. I'm killing the story.
Flash forward 20 years, and right before the pandemic, I do the junket for the first Sonic the Hedgehog and interview Jim Carrey. And we were doing a little bit of I had 10 minutes, which was longer than usual, so we were doing a little career retrospective. And he was talking a little bit Man on the Moon and Andy and all that. And so at the end of the interview, they basically yelled cut, but I leaned into him and I just said, actually, I was an extra on Man on the Moon, and I was actually there on the last day. And he's got up out of his seat, big arms, embraced me, said, "Thank you. Thank you for being a part of that. And Andy thanks you too."
Wow.
And I was like, okay, yeah.
That's amazing.
And yeah, he was great. But it's always a little startling when that happens.
Did he ask if you cloned him?
No, there wasn't enough time to remind him of that story. You know what I mean? You have to kind of be careful of how much, you only have so much time.
So, you got into journalism and you started interviewing, stars.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
In person. So you worked for the big Chinese publication. What was the name?
Right, M-Time.
M-Time.
Yeah, so it was sort of the Fandango of China.
Right. So where did you start? How did you...
While I was still an actor, I was working in post-production. I had a roommate from Emerson who was a apprentice editor and got me in on a movie called The Clearing with Robert Redford and Willem Defoe and Helen Mirim. And that editor, Kevin Tent, was Alexander Payne's editor and has edited all his movies. So I got brought on to Sideways. So I worked in post-production on Sideways. Right. And then worked on a bunch after that, Jumper with Doug Liman and a few others. And around that time that I was working on Jumper, I kind of was realizing the acting thing wasn't really working for me. I got in a Wendy's commercial and a couple of things in the play and stuff like that. But, I was going on a lot of auditions, but not, and I think I got sick of sort of at 28 or 29, being an out of work actor. I just didn't like that anymore. And so I was trying to think, well, what else?
I wouldn't know what that was.
Yeah, I didn't like
because I have my 31st birthday coming up.
Well, I didn't like the idea of my parents being like, "What's he doing? And is he going to be okay?" And I just wanted, and I was also sick of my career, and my job and my career were two different things, and had been for 10 years. And I wanted my job and my career to be the same thing.
That's cool.
I sort of started wanting to get into comic books because I loved comic books. So I was thinking, well, maybe I could edit comic books or work for DC or something like that. And then, long story short, I got a job writing for Wizard Magazine covering Comicon 2006. And so that was my entry level into it. And so I did that for them for a couple of years, freelance stuff. Also, I was working in post-production, so I could get an interview with Doug Liman, for the new Knight Rider TV show he was producing or something like that.
Right.
So I was doing a lot of that kind of stuff, like getting interviews that I could get and doing interviews that they would assign me. Worked for Comic Book Resources for a couple of years, but again, I was still just sort of freelancing while I was doing post-production work. And then in 2009, got offered a job with MovieWeb, and that's where I started doing film criticism on top of interviews, and also doing set visits and junket, and being part of the junket cycle of doing junket interviews. And then in 2011, got a gig with Relativity Media as the managing editor of I Am Rogue, which was their big movie site. And then Relativity Media, the studio, filed for bankruptcy in 2015. I did some freelance for Fandango and a few other places, and then M-Time in 2015.
But with Relativity, you interviewed quite a few A-list stars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got Oprah there.
Right.
That's where I got Oprah. Oprah was amazing. So I had never been like, I don't know, I wasn't like a huge Oprah fan, or I liked her. I didn't have a feeling really either one way or the other. But my mom loved Oprah, especially when she still had the show. And so this was when The Butler came out, I think, and there was a lot of Oscar buzz for her. And
Lee Daniels, The Butler?
Lee Daniels, The Butler.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was another The Butler.
Yeah.
show.
No. I think, right? Was that the name of it?
Yeah, Lee Daniels,
with
The
her and
Butler.
Forrest.
Yeah.
She got a big award at the Santa Barbara Film Festival, and I was covering. And not a lot of people got her on the press line, but somehow I was able to get her. And I asked her a question, and her answer to me began with, "Oh, that's a great question. I haven't gotten that before." And I was like, "Yeah."
Wow.
And it was so weird, too, because it was like, again, I didn't have like really, I didn't care about her one way or the other, really. And as soon as she walked towards me, like, it's like meeting a Beatle. It really is that. Like, it was like an angel walking over to me. Like, I was really surprised by how sort of starstruck I was by her. And I don't get starstruck super often.
Right.
Tom Cruise was another one that was kind of like, it's like talking to like a building or a car or something. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a person.
Right.
Like,
it's an icon.
It's an icon, Clooney's another super great one. Super nice. Hugh Jackman, super nice. The ones that I love the most are always like when I got to talk or interact with people that were big, like to me as a kid.
Right.
So like Stanley, obviously,
Right.
Mark Hamill, but even like Arsenio Hall was a huge deal.
Right.
Because I grew up watching that show,
Right.
or Eddie Murphy.
Right.
Bruce Willis was great. Bruce was one because I was a huge Bruce Willis fan as a kid. Like Die Hard and Moonlighting, like that was my shit. And so when I got into the business of journalism, pretty quickly I heard like, yeah, you might want to stay away from Bruce Willis. Like he's not he doesn't really like press, and and so I kind of stayed away for a while. And then when the last Die Hard was coming out, I was like, no, it's a Die Hard movie. I gotta, you know what I mean? If this is gonna be, if there's ever gonna be a time I'm gonna talk to him, like this will be the time. And he was super, super nice to me. Maybe you could tell I was a fan. I also posed the question sort of. Some journalists will like go right in with kind of like the gotcha question. No, you got to prop them up before you knock them down. Mm-hmm. And so maybe I propped him up a little bit, and he liked that. But like 2 weeks later, I was on the red carpet at the Independent Spirit Awards, and this was the year of Moonlight Kingdom, the Wes Anderson movie, and he was nominated for a Spirit Award for Best Supporting Actor. And so he's going down the press line, and I'm at the end. No one talks to us. Like, we're at the way end. And he's at the start talking to Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood. So the chances of him getting down to us at all is, And about halfway, he stops talking to people, and he and his new wife start walking. And as he's walking by, I'm just like, "Hey, Bruce." And he looks at me, and he came over and gave me 2 minutes. And to a degree where people were like, "Do you know him? Like, why did he stop for you?" And I was like, "I have no idea, but I'll take it. And I'm good. No more Bruce Willis. I'm good." And obviously now in light of, I'm glad I had a good experience with him back then. Yeah, it's funny. And I may have told you this, but I talked to the actor Frank Grillo. Do you know him? He's in the Purge movies, and he was
in Marvel.
Yeah, he's the Crossbones in Marvel. Yeah, so
I always get him confused with the Grillo from the Howard Stern show, wasn't it?
Oh, right? There was Steve Grillo. Yeah. No, there's another actor that I think I sometimes get Frank Grillo confused with Thomas Jane, or there's another sort of action-y guy that I sometimes confuse him with. But Frank's great. And I was interviewing him about a month before the news came out about Bruce. And he stars in a lot of these movies that Bruce does, these direct-to-DVD, like quickie movies that Bruce does. And he's done like 5 or 6 with them at this point. And the one that I was talking to him for was a movie that Bruce was in. And this was before the news came out, but he kept saying to me, and I didn't really think much about time, but he kept saying things like, yeah, I think this is Bruce's last one. I don't think he's going to be doing, I think he's going to retire soon. I don't think he's going to be doing too many. And he didn't say anything like he's sick or this is why. I just like, oh, that's interesting. Because if you're going to make $3 million for a week of work, why not keep doing that for, for as long as you want? But, I sort of put that in different perspective once that news came out. I was like, oh, I think he was kind of trying to like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, tell me, Bruce's time is almost up. Yeah. But he's got like 5 or 6 more movies in the can. There's another one coming out in a couple of weeks, White Elephant. Yeah. So, there'll be a few more.
Well, Chuck Russell just directed him in one in Hawaii. So that'll be coming out.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I'm sure.
I think it's Willis and Travolta.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because Travolta definitely does those now, too.
Yeah. And Chuck Russell did one with him a couple years ago, so with Travolta. So I saw Willis was there. So any real fun stories, about celebrities that surprised you? I mean, these are some good stories, Oprah and Willis. But,
let me see.
I don't want to ask. I guess everybody wants to know about people who are jerks to you. I don't think you want to talk about that. I really don't care. I'd prefer to have some like Jim Carrey giving you a big hug. Yeah, that's fucking cool.
Well, I'll say this. Like, I would say 90% of the people I interview are just fine. 5% are incredible, and 5% are terrible. But it's really not that many. Most people are just fine. Well, I mean, I do have some great Stan Lee stories.
Right.
I don't know if that's a big enough celebrity.
To me, it is.
So Stan, we had a really good, I had met him a bunch of times over the years, but then we had a really good relationship with his POW Entertainment team. Right. When I was working for China. And they were very big, before a lot of other companies were, quite frankly, actually big into global and, other countries. And so we would do a lot of work with them where I'd get to go to his office in Beverly Hills and spend some time with him. Of course, he was married to the same woman for like 60 years or 70 years or something ridiculous. And she died. And we had a date set up to come in and do a bunch of stuff that was going to be part of our Comicon coverage with him. And she died like maybe 4 or 5 days before we were scheduled to do it. And I was like, that's getting canceled. Like that's not going to happen. And then we got word like, no, he wants to keep his mind off of things, and he'll do it. And this was already, probably the 5th or 6th time I'd interacted with him for stuff. And we got to the office early to set up all the equipment and everything. And there was also going to be this weird component where I was going to wear a Spiderman costume.
You have the physique.
Yeah, you're right. Well, they wanted to originally hire a guy, and they wanted to go down to Hollywood Boulevard and get the Spider-Man guy. I was like, no.
The fat Spider-Man guy?
Yeah. I was like, no. We can get a costume for $45 and I'll put it on. And so that was the plan. So I'm in the Spider-Man outfit. So he comes in and he's so sweet. And maybe I didn't have the outfit on yet, but he comes in, he's so sweet, so nice. Really tired. I mean, you could tell, Yeah. The funeral was like the next day, everything that just sort of happened he was exhausted, but like so sweet and so nice to all of us. And so we do the interview bit, and then we were going to restage everything for this sort of stunt thing we were doing with me in the costume. And so I go to put on the costume, and we kind of hid me in this sort of corner. So because we didn't want him to see me with the costume yet. And so I'm just sitting there like mic'd up in a Spider-Man costume, like mask on, just like sitting, in the corner. And so they had shot something with him, and then he's like, can I take a break? And they're like, oh yeah, we got about 20 minutes if you want. He wanted to lay down, which is totally understandable. Right. I mean, the guy was like 86 or something at the time. Right. He's walking by with his partner, Gil, great guy, Gil Champion. And Gil's walking, and he's got his mic pack and everything like still on, and he's like, oh, can I take this stuff off to lay down? And the camera guy's like, no, just leave it on.
You've been watching Brian Lally, Hollywood Native. Now I want to talk to you about something I'm really passionate about, and that's teaching acting. So I co-founded Lola's Acting School with my son,
Kyle Lally Acting School. I've been acting for a long time now. I have 100 plus credits on IMDb, hundreds of plays I've been involved with over the years, and I just want to share that experience with you.
What we do differently here at Lola's is we give you practical advice that you can use on a movie set, on a play, an audition, anywhere. We give you the foundation to build yourself as a great actor.
If you come to us, you don't know anything. We can teach you everything you need to know to be comfortable on a set and to excel. Don't just listen to me. Look at what our students are doing. Daryl Wesley, who is writing on 2 hit shows, The Game and The Upshaws, and Ben Barrett, who is a series regular on The Politician. Megan Davis, who is playing Amber Heard in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard story. Come check us out. We're at the Historic Arc Theater in the NoHo Arts District. You ever want to try plant-based eating?
I have.
What, you're a little confused, overwhelmed? You don't know how to get started?
Definitely.
Well, there's a simple answer to that. Go to Debbie Chew's Chew On Vegan YouTube channel. Debbie Chew is a plant-based RN. I've known Debbie for over 38 years, and she's very good at what she does. You go to the channel, and there's over 300 recipes. They're simple, easy to make, and they're delicious. If you want to try it, you just might get healthy. Give it a shot. Chew On Vegan.
If you don't mind, it'll be easier. You just leave it on. You can lay down. And so he's sort of talking to Gil as he's walking by me, and he says, I feel ridiculous with this, this big pack on me. He said it just as he was walking by me, and he glanced at me, and I just looked at him with the Spider-Man costume on and said, you feel ridiculous? And he giggled. And then later, while I was wearing the Spider-Man costume, he referenced me as his son. Now, I know he meant Spider-Man's his son.
Right.
But I couldn't help feeling like maybe he was a little bit talking about me.
I got to tell you, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so Stan was great. Well, I had breakfast with Al Pacino once, which was everything you want it to be. Because he is hoo-ha, and I mean, he really is the hoo-ha guy.
Right.
He is that sort of 90s... and this was 10 years ago, but I mean, he was still sort of that like 90s heat, Scent of a Woman kind of Al Pacino. And everything was like, it's really interesting. He would only talk about 2 things from his past. Like he wouldn't really talk about Heat or talk about any of the 90s movies. No, he talked a lot about Panic in Needle Park, and he would talk a lot about The Godfather, which is what you want him to talk about. But every story was like, oh, Francis didn't want me, and the studio didn't want me, and Francis this, and it's kind of like the stories you've heard. Have you seen the Offer, the Paramount Plus?
I haven't watched it yet.
It's really good.
Is it good?
I mean, it's a little silly. And I think 50% of it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But
I was looking forward to it when the build-up. I just haven't gotten around to it. But
the guy who plays Robert Evans is amazing. Mm-hmm. Matthew Good, he was in Watchmen.
Okay,
yeah. He's incredible as the guy who plays Bob Evans. He's incredible on that.
Yeah.
So leading up to that breakfast, are you like freaking out?
I was a little nervous. Also, we didn't really know it was going to be a breakfast. Like it was at the Beverly Hilton, and so we were at a round table. It was a sort of a round table interview, but there was a buffet. So and we had already all eaten. Maybe we had some plates with eggs and bacon in front of us, but mostly had eaten. And then Pacino comes in, and he wanted the buffet. And he's like, "Oh, would you mind if I get some food today?" And we were like, "Yeah, no problem." And so that's how it ended up really being breakfast. Was just supposed to be, at a table with him. But he was great because he gives you all the sort of Godfather-y stuff that you would want. I got to interview Coppola once.
Wow.
Yeah, at a Comicon, no less.
Right.
Because there was a weird year in 2011 at Comicon where, for whatever reason, there weren't a lot of like Comicon-esque movies there, just because they didn't have a lot coming out or whatever. This was still early days of Marvel, and Disney didn't have Star Wars yet. It was a weird year where like the stars were, Del Toro was there with some movie that he was producing. Coppola was there. I think maybe this was the summer of Django, or before Django was released, and Tarantino was there. It was like all like, really artsy filmmakers as opposed to being, Comic-Con-y. But yeah, that's where I got Coppola and Val Kilmer.
Dang.
because Kilmer was starring before he really got sick.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a great Kilmer story, actually, and this would tie into Top Gun. Okay, so rumors of a Top Gun 2. Now, Tony Scott's still alive. This is like 2011, so Tony Scott's still alive. Val Kilmer isn't sick yet, and there have been in the press rumors about that Tom Cruise is interested in Top Gun 2, that they're talking about Top Gun 2. So I get Val Kilmer for this Coppola movie. I can't remember what it was, but it was some Coppola horror movie that he did around that time. And so I'm talking to Val, and Val was this is post the Downey Jr. Shane Black movie.
Yeah, Kiss,
Bang, Bang. Yeah. So he was already like a little heavier. I kind of call it his Elvis phase, because he had a beard. He was like a little heavier, and he did have aviator sunglasses on.
Right.
So I'm talking to him about the movie, about Coppola, blah, blah, blah. And then my last question, I say, listen, there's been a lot of talk lately about...
Am I too close to Murphy?
No, you're okay. I hear him growling a little bit.
Yeah.
But I've got him. He's pretty far back.
Yeah.
I've got him. But he is keeping a beat on your feet.
Yeah.
And so...
He can snap.
Oh, yeah, you can. But I've got him. No, he's good. He just relaxed. So Kilmer comes in, and so my last question, I say, listen, there's been some talk in the trades about Top Gun 2, and is that something you would be interested in doing? And Val Kilmer went on this great thing. He's like, when I was doing the first one, Tony Scott told me, hey, Val, so he starts doing like a Tony Scott British impression. He goes, Val, the plane's going to be great. We're going to have the planes going like this, going like that, and then Val's doing this, explaining this. And so he's like, yeah, I'd love to do it. If Tom's there, that'd be great. And then he kind of pauses for a second, and he looks at me like he's getting serious. And he goes, I even have a title for it. And I was like, wow, okay. And so I'll bite, Yeah. I was like, oh, wow, what would the title be? And so he stops looking at me, and he looks directly into camera, right? And he says, Top Gun 2. And then he whips off his aviators like David Caruso on CSI. Top Gun 2. Dogfight. And then he just walked out. Because I was the last interview in the hall. He just walked out of the whole room.
Because he gave you the punchline.
Because he gave me the punchline.
Like Robert
Top
Stack
Gun
in
2, Dogfight.
Airplane.
Yes. So obviously that's not the title they ended up going with. And I will say, I've seen Top Gun 2. It's awesome. And Val's scene is the best scene in the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really touching. It's really good.
Right.
And that's all I'll say. I don't want to say anything else.
Do they keep saying to him, speak up?
Well, this is what I didn't want to say, but I'll say it like this. They incorporate the actor's illness with the character.
Okay.
So it all makes sense. Yeah. But yes, he can't really speak much. Yeah, but it makes sense in the context of the film. And it's really good. So, yeah, so that's a good Val Kilmer story. I mean, I've interviewed Kermit you want to hear Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy's story? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Wait, Frank Oz? Are we talking?
This is the guy who took over Steve Kimmick.
Jobs?
No, well, he took over Kermit from Jim Henson when Jim Henson died.
Right.
But then he had an issue where he was canceled by Disney. I don't want to say the wrong sexual harassment, but something.
Wait, does Disney own Henson?
Disney owns Henson.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Disney. No, well, that's not accurate. Disney owns the Muppets.
Okay.
They don't own the Jim Henson Company. The Jim Henson Company owns Dark Crystal and Fraggle Rock and that IP. The Disney just owns the Muppets.
Okay.
I don't even think they have Sesame Street. I think HBO has Sesame Street.
Kermit got canceled?
So the guy who was Kermit got canceled, I think. But this was him back then. And so it was on the set of the first Muppet movie, like of the recent ones, the one with Amy Adams and Jason Segel. Mm-hmm. And so we're on the set. And it was really funny because it's a scene where they are all in a car. It's Jason Segel, Amy Adams, and like all the Muppets in a car. And so the car is stripped of everything beneath it. And it's raised. So it's just the shell. And then you have like Amy and Jason sitting in their seats. And then you have the Muppeteers like laying on their backs with their arms up like this. So as soon as they yell, so you got the puppet up like this, right? And they come alive. It's amazing. It's like, oh my God, Kermit's alive. Like you really believe it. It's really magical the way that happens. And then they yell cut. It's like, I mean, because their arms are tired, but they just go down so quick. You're just like, oh my God. So then another interesting Muppet thing is there. So then we go past this table. And it's like a picnic table, like a huge picnic table, a card table folded out. and it's got a tarp over it because all the Muppets are laid out on the table.
Right.
And they're referred to on set as dead Muppets.
Oh.
And that's why they have the tarp over them, because they were outside, and God forbid they don't ever want anyone to see a dead Muppet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it takes away the magic and all that. So the set visit was basically over. We had seen them shooting. We had talked to Amy and everybody, Jason, everybody. And we were waiting for a special photo op. All the press members, one by one, we're going to have a special photo op with Kermit and Piggy. So we're just waiting around, and I'm talking to this hippie-looking dude. He's got long brown hair and a long beard, and he looks, tie-dye T-shirt, and looks like a hippie. And I'm just talking to him, and I don't realize that he's Kermit the Frog.
Right.
He's Steve Kimmock, or whatever that guy's name was. I'm just talking to this guy, and then I swear he puts this green sock on his arm,
Right.
and he becomes invisible. Obviously not literally, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's magical.
Right.
You're not seeing that human being anymore. You're just talking to Kermit the Frog, and he's
Right.
alive and he's real. So the other guy who's Miss Piggy, he's there too. And they get down kind of on their knees on the ground. And so the idea was you've seen this picture of me before posing with them, is we kind of come in right behind them. So you got Kermit here, Piggy here, and each one of us kind of comes in, leaning in over them. So the picture is just, the person and then the two Muppets. And so I do my picture, and I get done. And as I'm kind of stepping out of the way, another reporter, a female reporter who is attractive, and that's important for this story, for the punchline of the story, I'll just say she's an attractive woman, a blonde walks into the frame to get the picture taken. Now, there's no video going. This isn't a show. These are just still photos.
Yeah.
I see, as Jenna, the girl, walks into the frame, Miss Piggy turns her head and starts looking over the girl, and then says out of the corner of her mouth, "Hey lady, keep your hands off my frog." And I mean, as if they were real, like she's ad-libbing, and like the guy didn't look like he was paying any attention at all, know? And so it's just, it's amazing how those Muppets kind of come alive. I got to meet a few Fraggle Rocks characters at some Fraggle Rock thing once too, but yeah. Oh, and I got to meet Carol Spinney, who was Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch for 30 or 40 years. That's interesting because I had a 15-minute interview with him, and because they had made a documentary about him, which is actually a very good documentary.
Right.
So I had about a 15-minute interview with him. He was a great interview. He's telling me all these great stories. One story I'll tell you real quick is that Big Bird was supposed to go into outer space.
Right.
Not, what was her name? Christy McAuliffe? On the challenge? Yes.
Christy McAuliffe. Yeah.
So the Challenger that blew up in 84, 85?
Yeah.
Christy McAuliffe was this school teacher who was chosen to be the first regular person in space.
Right.
Originally, it was going to be Big Bird.
Wow.
Big Bird was going, because it was an educational thing, so she was going to teach kids from space.
Right.
So originally it was going to be Carol Spinney as Big Bird teaching kids from space. But we know what happened to the shuttle. So
he actually wore the Big Bird suit? Or?
Well, that was the plan.
Yeah.
But he didn't go into space. They didn't end up doing it. And so this other woman went, and then the shuttle exploded. But so 15-minute interview with this guy who's great. Gave me great answers, really, because the worst thing is like one-word answers, or, a person gives you, a couple sentences, like you want them to talk,
Right.
and so towards the end of the interview, I noticed that he's got a little duffel bag. And I said, "What's in the duffel bag?" And he goes, "Oh, that's Oscar." I was like, "Oh, could we talk to Oscar for a second?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, sure." So he puts Oscar on. Oscar gets up. Oscar can't do an interview. He didn't know what to say. He couldn't improv with me. Do you know what I mean? That's when I realized, this is my opinion, is that he can only be witty when it's written out for him as the character. So to do Oscar was a terrible interview. Carol was great, but Oscar was terrible because Oscar didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
So
Oscar, unlike Miss Piggy.
Miss Piggy's a prima donna. I had another issue with Miss Piggy on the second Muppet movie, the one with Ricky Gervais and Tina Fey. They don't want you interviewing the Muppeteers. They want to pretend like they're not real, like they're not there. So I was doing a print interview. So it wasn't on camera. It was just a print interview. And in theory, I was supposed to be interviewing Miss Piggy. But, you know, we all know I'm interviewing a guy doing a Miss Piggy voice. I mean, it's all silly. It's just really silly for a print interview.
Please.
And so I was like, can I just interview the guy? Because that's interesting about him being a Muppeteer. No. You're interviewing the character. All right, fine. So I get there, and I guess it was at the end of a long press day, and the guy who does Miss Piggy was tired and did not feel like putting the puppet on his hand and just wanted to do the voice to me in the interview. And I found that to be ridiculous. Yeah. I said, listen, I'll interview him as him. And they're like, no. You would still be interviewing Miss Piggy, but he's just not going to put the puppet on. But then I'm not interviewing Miss Piggy. But I'm interviewing a guy doing a squeaky voice. Yeah. And I don't, you know, so either I interview the guy or I interview Miss Piggy, but he's got to put the sock on. And so, and you know me, Brian, I don't fight back often.
No.
But that was one where I said, come on. Either the guy's putting the sock on or we're not doing this. This is ridiculous. What are we doing
He
here?
did it?
He begrudgingly put the Muppet on and then did the voice, and, you know, it's fine.
What about Bale? Christian Bale?
Yeah. I've had some good interviews with Christian Bale. I had... he did a movie in Pittsburgh that I went to the set for.
Out of the Furnace?
Out of the Furnace, yeah.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was an interesting movie because, so it was the director, Scott Cooper, who directed the movie that Jeff Bridges won his Oscar for. Yeah. That cowboy singer movie. But what's interesting, so that was his first movie and was a total indie. He was an actor, became a director. It was a total indie thing. Mm-hmm. So Out of the Furnace was a relatively media movie. It was a big cast because it was Bale and Zoe Saldana and Forrest Whitaker and Defoe and Woody Harrelson and Casey Affleck. It was ridiculous. So that was the first movie as a director he'd ever had press visit the set. And I don't think he understood that he wasn't making Batman, that he was just making some little drama that no one really cared about. You know what I mean? If you do a set visit to a Batman movie or a Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie, they're going to be somewhat guarded with some things, but for the most part, they're going to tell you everything because they know you've signed an NDA. It says you can't run anything until 2 weeks before the movie comes out.
Crazy Heart.
So usually, Crazy Heart, that's right. So usually they're really good with being, I mean, I've been on Marvel sets where I know all the secrets and that, you know what I mean? Like they're usually pretty good with sharing because they know you're not going to say anything. And no one would care about Out of the Furnace. Like there's no spoilers for Out of the Furnace, but he was so guarded about the movie and about showing us anything. Like you would have thought it was another Batman. And we're like, we don't know why you're acting like this. But so it was really kind of difficult to even do coverage for that because it was like, I remember explaining to someone, I was like, by the time we write our coverage, there's going to be a trailer that explains what the movie's about. Yeah. So there's no reason to, to be hiding all this at this point. But Bale was great. Yeah. And I remember in the interview for that was really good. You know, a lot of times I'll get these guys at like, you know, Spirit Awards or the festival, festival stuff like that on the red carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Batman, what'd you think of
the new Batman?
Robert Pattinson.
I liked it. I didn't love it as much as some people, but I really did like it. I think it's very good. I love the noir aspects. I love that it's mostly a Batman movie. There's not a lot of Bruce Wayne. I thought that Pattinson was at best when he was Batman. I thought when we did see him as Bruce Wayne, it was a little weak. Yeah. I didn't think he was as good as Bruce Wayne as he was as Batman. I didn't think they gave Alfred a lot to do. The villains were great. Loved Catwoman, loved Penguin. Riddler actually wasn't, because they kind of made him Hush, but still called him Riddler. Yeah. And then I didn't really like the addition of Joker or whoever that's supposed to be at the end. Yeah, I just thought that was a little bit of a waste of time. I liked the music. I mean, there was a lot of things I really liked, but I guess my biggest complaint was like, one, it's very similar to Dark Knight. Yeah. Like the idea of saying like, this is nothing like Nolan's. No, it's very much like Nolan's. And then my other issue with it is like, and Brian, you'll remember, like Batman used to be fun. Yeah. Like he was fun. And I don't mean that we have to go back to like funny Adam West, although I have a special place in my heart for the Adam West 60s show. I'm not saying we have to go like campy, ridiculous like that. Yeah. But I mean, you could make an Iron Man-esque movie where it's serious action and it's fun and has a little humor in it, you know? So it was just too
Dark.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I liked it a lot.
Were you interviewing people? Were you there reporting on the early days of the Marvel Universe movies?
Yeah, I was there pretty early. When Iron Man came out, I was working at Comic Book Resources. I remember interviewing Favreau for that. And the actor who plays the terrorist that Tony Stark kills in the beginning. And then Iron Man 2, I was at Comic Book Resources. I think by the time Iron Man 2 came out, I was at MovieWeb. And then from that point on, pretty much MovieWeb. When I was first at I Am Rogue was when Avengers came out. That was the first, even though technically Paramount, it was made while Paramount owned Marvel, but then it was released. It was the first Disney release of a Marvel movie.
Right.
So yeah, I've pretty much been on the roads, you know, the entire time with the MCU. I was on the set of Homecoming, of Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers. I think it ended up being Infinity War. At the time, we weren't sure what we were because they were shooting both movies at the same time. So they were kind of like, this is a set visit to one of them. We don't really know which one you're visiting because they're shooting both films. It ended up being the scene on Titan where Doctor Strange does the magic to see all the different possibilities of how they beat Thanos, and there's only one. Like that was the scene that we watched them shoot. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But it was crazy because it was all green screen. It was all, you know, just.
Yeah, I saw Doctor Strange recently. I was I don't know, it seemed like it didn't know quite what it was trying to be.
I liked it. But one of the big complaints is that it's basically the final episode of WandaVision. And so if you didn't see WandaVision, you're probably missing a lot of that. And that it's not really, you know, Spider-Man No Way Home 2.0, which it was sort of advertised as. Mm-hmm. And without giving anything away, I think people were expecting more from the multiverse than sort of what happened. I liked it. And if you love Sam Raimi, I mean, this is a Sam Raimi movie. Mm-hmm. They really let him go full Raimi. Yeah. So I like Sam Raimi a lot. So I like that aspect of it. But I do get some of the disappointment that fans are having with it.
Yeah. I was thinking the multiverse is going to be more like along the lines of the rumors. Yeah,
I mean, they pulled off some of the rumors, you know. I mean, I think that that last casting, the last one revealed, I think that was in lieu of, they were never getting Tom Cruise to be Iron Man. That was ridiculous. Yeah. But in lieu of that, I felt like that was a big enough get. Yeah. You know, along with Professor X. And then there was a lesser big get, but that was very surprising to me that I thought I would never see that character come back to MCU. So I thought that was good. I get that they did feel like a bit of a, you know, bait and switch because of sort of what happens so quickly when they meet with Scarlet Witch.
Someone else was directing it.
It was the guy who directed the first one, Deckerson. Yeah. But he directed the first one, and he did like Sinister, and he's got that other new one with Ethan Hawke coming out, like Black something.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke is bringing it these days. I mean, he's.
Did you like Moon Knight?
Yeah, I did. I liked him in The Northman.
Yes. Yeah. I love The Northman. That's probably my favorite movie of the year so far. Love The Northman.
I crushed that.
The Northman is sick, Brian.
Yeah.
Northman is so good. It's kind of like Braveheart, Spartacus, and Conan the Barbarian kind of wrapped up in one.
That's not a big build-up.
What do you mean? Yeah. Braveheart, Spartacus, and Conan the Barbarian.
So you got 2 Academy Award winners. I don't know about Spartacus. Braveheart, Spartacus, an Academy Award winner, and then Conan.
I got to imagine at least was nominated for something. I don't know if it was the Best Picture winner.
No, I was surprised. I was not expecting it to be as good as it.
Yeah, I mean, Eggers is a great director. Oh, yeah. He did The Lighthouse.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So this is his new one. I've always liked Alexander Skarsgård. He's one of those actors that I think kind of didn't find his way as easily as he probably should have. And hopefully this, you know. Although I liked the Tarzan movie.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Right? The Tarzan movie's pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Are they doing another one of those?
No, because it didn't do well. It bombed pretty badly.
Okay.
I think it's had a fairly good life on like TNT and stuff.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So you never know. I mean, I'm surprised by some of sort of sequels being announced now anyways. So, you know, Hocus Pocus 2 and, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so you never know.
Yeah.
When did you start getting into Marvel? Were you always into Marvel like day one?
I was initially into it heavy, and then I feel like they kind of got into more of a cookie cutter, like odds are against us.
Right.
And then I feel like in recent years they haven't been taking the chance, like trying new things as much. They kind of have that
You mean
cookie
the
cutter
Marvel
formula.
movies? Yeah, they definitely have a formula. I mean, it's interesting. I feel like when they get an auteur director and let them do their own thing, like James Gunn.
Yeah.
Like they just let James Gunn do whatever he wanted on Guardians. Taika's another perfect example. Like what Taika did with Ragnarok. I mean, that series was dead.
Yeah.
Thor was over. You know, and now they've got a Thor 4 coming out this summer because Ragnarok was so great. When they let, you know, John Watts, they let him kind of do his thing with the Spider-Mans. When they let a director do, but sometimes it doesn't work. You know, like they let Chloe Zhao do what she wanted with Eternals, and I didn't really like Eternals.
Yeah.
You know, and they let Sam Raimi be Sam Raimi, and you know whether that really worked or not, you know, is up to opinion. But I do think when they hire the director and let the director do what they hired them to do, it works out better. The other example is like DC wouldn't let Zack Snyder be. You hired Zack Snyder, let him make the movie.
Seriously.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or fire him, and which they did do ultimately. But so I think it doesn't always work, but I think you're better. See, what do you think about this, Brian? I don't think it always works, but I think you're better off letting the filmmaker you hire do what you hire them to do than micromanage them.
Yeah, of course, always. I mean that goes back to what's his name, Jack Warner, saying that. Okay, I'm moving my feet. Say that.
I got you, buddy. You're okay. Yeah, you're okay, Murphy.
What is the fuck is his name? I was just talking about him all day yesterday. Who directed the company? Who directed? Oh my God, I can't.
Oh.
Yeah, the phenomenal filmmaker.
Robert Altman.
Robert Altman. So Robert Altman was directing a film, like his first film at Warner Brothers, and he had microphones all around the table, and everybody was talking. And Jack Warner fired him, and he was like, "Do you know what he's doing? Do you know what he's doing? He's letting people talk over each other." So
Which,
back
of course,
then,
is what he ended up being known for as a filmmaker.
well, yeah, with the reality of how people really talk.
Right.
And so, yeah, so I think in you know, Seinfeld talks about it, everybody talks, Letterman talks about it, keeping the executives out of the room. Yeah. And I think the best executives, Robert Evans being one of them, hire people and let them do what they want. He hired Roman Polanski to direct Chinatown because he wanted a European's opinion and vision of what he thought Hollywood was at that time, which is how all the pastels came. So yes, yeah, all pastels came to be in
and
a
that
beautiful...
actually comes across in The Offer a lot.
Right.
Is that Evans really fought to, you know, let the Godfather, you know, when other people like Gulf and Western and Blue Horn and those guys were kind of coming in, you know, he really fought like, nope, let Francis do his thing. And they do actually cover a little Chinatown in The Offer.
But I'm just agreeing with you that if you get a brilliant filmmaker, and I think it works out a lot more often than it doesn't.
Right, I agree.
But sometimes sometimes you take a swing, and that's what artists do. Sometimes you take a swing, and it doesn't work out, but you take a fucking swing. You know, Hoffman talks about that. You know, Dustin Hoffman talks about go down swinging.
Well, I always appreciate a bigger swing, than something safe. Like, you know, Chloe Zhao is another perfect example. Like, I didn't think Eternals worked, but she definitely took a big swing. You can say the same about James Gunn, where I think those do work. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, in general, I think when they let
Orson
the filmmaker...
Welles, the Magnificent Ambersons, when they just change, you know, they change the movie.
Right.
And then it doesn't work, and then he gets labeled as a bad filmmaker.
Well, there's a story about the last Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder movie was directed by Peter Bogdanovich.
Right.
And then they shut down production, and Bogdanovich was gone.
Right.
And they rewrote the entire movie. I don't even think they used the first half of production in the final film. Yeah. It's a mess of a movie.
But is there a story about the first production would have worked?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bogdanovich had a plan, and they didn't let him.
Well, right.
Kind of.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Would the Bogdanovich version of that work better than the final? That I'm not sure. I mean, I think the whole thing was doomed from the beginning. But
Right.
I'll tell you this: it probably would have been more interesting.
Right.
Yeah, may not have been better, but it might have been more interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
could have turned out to be better.
Yeah.
So,
I'd like to see Disney allow Marvel to step into that, like how Deadpool really took a.
Deadpool is going to be interesting. The Disney Deadpool 3 and
Yeah.
what they do with that, and how I mean, I really liked Free Guy and The Adam Project, which were the last two Ryan Reynolds movies, both directed by Sean Levy, who did A Night at the Museum, among others.
Yeah.
And there are some Sean Levy movies I really like. He did a good family drama that had Tina Fey and Jane Fonda in it. And I like Real Steel, which was the Hugh Jackman movie, and that was good. But for the most part, I mean, I'm not a big fan of The Night at the Museums. I certainly didn't like The Cheaper by the Dozens or The Pink Panthers. I mean, those are his franchises.
God.
Yeah, the Steve Martin Pink Panthers. Those are all his franchises.
Yeah.
So I really like Free Guy, really like Adam Project. And, Ryan obviously has a good working relationship after those two movies, and he brought him in to be his director for Deadpool 3. And, of course, the studio's not going to turn it down because it's a big-name director. He just delivered a lot of money with Free Guy, and this is, Ryan's choice. But I love David Leitch, who did the first John Wick, Atomic Blonde, the last Deadpool 2. And so I don't know what it means to have the Night at the Museum guy now. I mean, I know he can do more and he's shown more, but like still, it's a very Disney choice.
Yeah, I said it more in like a sense of like a R-rated Iron Man film.
If Disney makes a Deadpool movie in the MCU, I don't see how you make it PG-13. Now, they're still saying it's going to be R. I don't see how Disney puts out an R movie.
Yeah.
I just don't, and if they do, it'll never be on Disney Plus. It'll just be on Hulu, which is where I think Deadpool 1
That's
and 2
where I think
live.
Disney and Marvel kind of put themselves in like a box a little too much versus DC they're not confined by that aiming for the kids as much.
Right. DC can put out, DC Legends of the Super Pets and Black Adam and a super dark Batman and a super dark Joker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they can kind of pop all over. I mean, there's definitely a Marvel formula that has serviced them well.
Oh, yeah.
And I think one of the tricks is now Star Wars is trying to figure out what that formula is because, I think they've had some sort of rocky. Obviously, Star Wars is still super popular, but the post Disney acquiring
I wasn't
has
a fan
been
of
rocky.
the recent trilogy.
No, I really, really liked The Last Jedi, the second one. I liked the first one a lot. I liked the first two a lot, and I hated the last one.
Yeah.
And
I hated The Last Jedi, but was okay with the most recent one.
oh, interesting.
I just felt like
right.
watching Mark Hamill just pout around
I know.
was a little.
Well, I liked that it was something different than what I expected.
Yeah.
But there's the other camp that wanted what they expected. Yeah, and I get that. I didn't like the course correction. I mean, I think it was never a good idea to split the trilogy up with 3 different directors, which was always the plan,
Yeah.
And then course correcting by bringing JJ back probably wasn't a good idea either. And if you look, JJ's never directed a good sequel. Look at his resume of movies.
Did he do the second?
He did the
Star
second
Trek?
Star Trek, which is not as good as the first one.
Yeah.
And he did the third Star Wars that is not as good as the first one. So
Did you like Rogue One?
I did like Rogue One. I actually don't hate Solo.
Yeah.
I actually think there's some good stuff in Solo.
Yeah. So too.
But The Mandalorian, I love The Mandalorian. And I would say, did you see the Book of Boba Fett?
I watched it.
Did you
I
see the
felt like-
Mando episodes?
Yeah, that's when it finally.
Yeah, right.
The Sand
So
People
Book of
stuff. I was
Boba Fett
like,
wasn't that great
Yeah.
a series, but 2 of the episodes don't even have Boba Fett in them. They're completely Mandalorian episodes. One of those episodes, the one that had the return of Baby Yoda, the return of young Luke, and Ashoka in it, and Cad Bane shows up for the first time.
Yeah.
I would say that hour of Star Wars television is as good as any hour of any Star Wars movie ever made.
Yeah, I agree.
Which probably says more about how bad some of the Star Wars movies that have been made are. But
Well,
I
once
would
we
put
got
that
out of
hour
that-
up with as good of an hour from Empire or New Hope.
Getting out of that Sand People storyline, I was like, thank you.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was
But
about, I
once
was
they
about to
get back
kill
to
myself.
to the old West town with Timothy Oliphant and all that stuff, Merf.
For
settle
fuck's
down.
sake, let me get comfortable, dog.
No, he does
it
not
might be
want you to
this.
get
It
comfortable.
might be the cord.
It could be the cord too. It's very
'Cause
much the cord. He's okay. He's got his football.
He's okay.
He thinks it's a snake.
He won't bite you again.
If he does.
Glom on your fucking.
So, what do you have going on now?
So now I'm at moviephone.com.
Okay.
So, which is obviously the old, the brand we know from the 90s. A lot of people will recognize it from an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer answers the phone, "Hello and welcome to Movie Phone." And Movie Phone is this interesting thing. You may be a little bit too young for this, Dave, but like in the 90s, before there was an internet, or before we knew how to use it, if you wanted to find what local movie theater was showing the movie you wanted to see, you called this phone number. And this voice would say, "Hello, welcome to Movie Phone. For Jurassic Park, push 1. For Armageddon, push 2." And then you'd push the number with the movie you wanted to see, and then it would tell, maybe you put in your zip code or something, and then tell you what times it's playing.
I didn't know
at the
that.
theater.
Oh, the guy started in his garage.
Yeah.
Sold it for $137 million.
Huge thing. And then when it got digital, before Fandango, you would buy your movie tickets there. And so it's gone through a bunch of different hands. It was at AOL, and they kind of messed with it. And then it went to Movie Pass. Remember Movie Pass? That lasted about a hot minute. And they kind of really destroyed it. And so the company I work for now bought Movie Phone in 2020 from Movie Pass. And they produce a weekly syndicated television show called Made in Hollywood. It's nationally syndicated in 90 markets across the country. And it's basically a junket package show, all interviews from different junkets. And so they wanted... they didn't really have a website presence, so they bought Movie Phone, and I hired me late last year. I'm the editor-in-chief now of Movie Phone, which is awesome. And
Congrats.
helping booking talent for the website and as well as the TV show. We sort of cross, between the two, and so any content on the TV show ends up on the site and vice versa. And, we've just been handling all the movies. I do a lot of reviews, interviews. We have daily news. So all the big stories we're posting daily, the news, reviews, interviews. You can get your show times on moviephone.com. Soon we will also be doing ticket sales as well. We're going to get back into that.
Is there an app?
Yep. There's an app. So we're on mobile. We're on, everywhere else.
And what is the app?
It's a Movie Phone.
Well, I know. I mean, moviephone.com. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to promote.
No,
your
Moviephone.
company.
I thought I said moviephone.com, but yeah,
No,
moviephone.com.
I didn't say that because I don't know what a fucking
Yeah,
app
no.
is.
It's lost a lot of-
And what is the
well,
app?
but I don't know that there's an
Moviephone.com.
app, but it's mobile, so you can get Movie Phone on your phone.
Gotcha.
So my question wasn't stupid because you don't know if it's mobile.
Well, no, it is mobile.
He's lost a lot of
but it's
blood already.
App's not the word.
I'm getting cold.
Oh no, my feet! I can't feel my toes.
feel my feet.
Murphy and my toes. And so showtimes and reviews and all that stuff on Movie Phones, which is great. And then we've got Star Wars Celebration coming up in Anaheim next weekend. So that'll be exciting. And I'm sure, Obi-Wan premieres this week. So we'll have, I'm sure Obi-Wan will be at the convention and Ashoka and all the... that's where Star Wars is really doing some good stuff, I think, is on the TV shows. I honestly, I think they just let Favreau and Dave Filoni run the whole thing, but right now I think they're relegated just to the TV side.
I have to say that I was sharing a house with a crazy woman, and it was Christmas time, and Dave here went to Florida for Christmas, and I stayed at his house.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, you filmed there.
Yeah.
We filmed there at the lake house. And I watched The Mandalorian. He's like, "Do you watch The Mandalorian?" Kyle and Dave like, "You seen the last episode?" And I'm like, "I'm watching it." And I was
Of
into
season
it.
2?
Was that season 1?
Oh, was it season 1? Okay.
Well, the last episode where
LS?
Luke shows
yeah,
up.
Yeah. Okay, so that's season 2.
And
Yeah.
the last episode.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I've never geeked out anymore. I think I was calling you. I was like, "Oh my God, is this happening? Is this happening?" I never geeked out so much in my fucking life.
They did a good job with him. I think they did. I thought that the effects worked really good with that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like when they've
Well,
done.
I just mean he shows up.
No, but I just mean the
fucking
de-aging. The
shows
de-aging doesn't always work. Like
Right.
I don't think it worked with De Niro in Irishman.
It didn't bother me. You and I have talked about that. It didn't bother me.
Because he still moved like a 70-year-old guy, even when he was 20.
Yeah.
And his face just like looked too polished. But then like the way they use it in the Ant-Man movies with Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer, that looks like seamless. Or Sam Jackson and Captain Marvel was really good.
Yeah.
Phil Coulson, Greg Clark?
Greg Clark?
Is it Greg Clark or Clark Gregg?
Greg?
I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about. He looks just too blurry.
Right.
Like that's the problem sometimes. If the de-aging doesn't work right, they just look blurry.
Right.
Wasn't James Dean supposed to be starring in something coming up?
I know what you're talking about. And I think there was some talk about bringing Steve McQueen back to life too.
Yeah.
But no, there was talk about bringing James Dean back to life in something.
Yeah.
That becomes too many questions for me because then, who's the actual human being doing the acting? Because the whole character, you're just digitizing a face on another human being. So who's the human being doing the actual acting?
Yeah.
I don't know. I hadn't heard that.
Are you excited for Elvis?
Yeah, but the thing is, it's Elvis. I'm a huge Elvis fan.
Yeah.
I could tell you where I was, when I heard,
Right.
tell you exactly how I felt and what the weather was when I heard that Elvis died. So the thing is, it's hard, gearing up for it. I want to see it. Of course, I'm going to see it. But look, I was a big Bobby Darin fan, and then Kevin Spacey did Beyond the Sea. And look,
So bad in that.
Kevin Spacey is a phenomenal actor.
I think he was nominated for an Academy Award for it.
But he was singing.
Right.
And Bobby Darin's just got a legendary voice.
The Cannes Film Festival is going on right now.
Yeah.
And they are shopping the first Kevin Spacey movie in 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen the trailer for it?
No.
Oh my God. It looks awful.
Oh.
He looks awful. The wig, the toupee that he has on or whatever, he's just playing a creepy, like, assassin.
Well, that's too bad. You look, I know Kevin Spacey's, done his things, and
There's a bunch of movies. Polanski's got one down there.
Right.
Johnny Depp's got one down there. I mean, everyone canceled. James Franco's got one. He's shopping at Cannes right now. So
Really?
I read a list of all the canceled people that are shopping things at Cannes, and he was on it.
I spent days with Kevin Spacey on the set of L.A. Confidential.
Right.
I've seen the man in action, but he's a phenomenal actor.
Incredible
So
actor.
it's hard to believe that this looks
Well,
horrible.
that's part of the problem is that he is an incredible actor, and so we know how good he is, and he's so bad in this.
really. That's
Because I'm sure he's just doing it for money, and it's probably not a very good script.
Well, that's the wrong reason to do it. I mean, he's got to. Whatever, man. Whatever. I don't know.
Well, if Mel Gibson can come back,
yeah.
anyone can come back.
Yeah, but the thing about Mel Gibson is he didn't touch anybody. I mean, he said words and they were awful.
Right.
They were awful.
Well, and also on that list is Baldwin, Alec.
Right. Really?
Because he's in trouble for killing a woman.
Yeah, I mean,
But he's still shopping movies, making movies.
now this is a movie Franco wants to
I don't know the full story.
have made because I saw his name on IMDb for the first time in a long time.
I don't know if the way the article is written, I can't tell if he is actively shopping something there or if someone is actively shopping something with him attached there. Either way, there's something trying to be sold at Cannes
Right.
with James Franco attached.
Right.
Whether he's the one trying to sell it or not, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, but his name's attached to something.
Well, this has been phenomenal.
This is it.
Yeah.
Well, I
This
mean,
is
it could be,
amazing.
but you said you had to, you had some place to be. How long have we been going? We've been going at least 90 minutes.
Yeah, like a good hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can
So,
wrap it up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to come back.
Absolutely.
I'm going to think of different things to ask you because I want to hear about more interviews and where you're going to go from here. What's your vision? Where are you going from here, JP?
I mean, I'm just happy to...
Hold on a sec. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Interviewing Bruce Dern.
Oh, okay. Let's end on that. I'm glad you remembered that one. Okay, this is a very touching story. So, my father and I were really close, and he died of Parkinson's in 2013, summer 2013.
Way too young.
And the fall of 2013. Thank you, Ben Philbrick. And growing up, and all my friends heard this too. Like, we would constantly hear this story. Anytime that Bruce Dern was on television or in a movie or on the news, my dad would tell, me and my friends, I ran track in high school against Bruce Dern. And I don't think we didn't believe him, but it was just one of those things that was like, yeah, sure. And I guess I sort of figured he probably did run track against him in high school, but he didn't know him, or know anything, So my dad passes, and then a couple months later, and it's all sort of interesting because Alexander Payne, who I had worked with my old boss, Kevin Tent, his editor, put out a movie called Nebraska, which is about an old man dying in a relationship between father and son with Will Forte and Bruce Dern. And so Bruce Dern gets nominated for an Oscar, I think, right? Didn't he get nominated for an Oscar? Yeah. And now this sort of ropes back into, this was the same week with Oprah. This was the last night of the Santa Barbara Film Festival, and they were celebrating Bruce Dern that night. So I had told the publicist running the red carpet, we were friends, and she knew the story about Bruce Dern running against my dad. And she was like, oh, you should try to tell him. And I was like, that's fine. He's not going to remember. Mm-hmm. And Bruce Dern was really, very, still pretty, as old as he is now, this was, 8 years ago or whatever. Yeah. So he was old enough. And I was like, no. And so we do the carpet. She brings him over to me. We're having a nice interview. Everything's kind of going fine. And all of a sudden he starts talking about running. And he's a big runner. Running he's an avid
ultra marathon.
Yeah, ultra marathon.
He's a
from
big Malibu to Paramount
to Santa Barbara and back. Yeah.
But he was working doing movies, and he would run to Paramount from Malibu.
So he loves run. He's a big running guy. And so he starts talking about running, and he starts naming these people that he's run with, and he's talking about, me and so from Santa Barbara and ran here and da-da-da. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And so I just sort of, and I wasn't planning on it, but I just sort of threw out, I said, my father used to say that he ran track against you in high school. And he looks at me surprised. Your father? Who's your father? And so I'm thinking, okay. Well, my dad's name was Ben Philbrick. Ben Philbrick was your father? I was shocked. He knew who he was. Yeah. I was like, what? And so, oh, yeah, and he ran, you tell him. I didn't tell him that he had just passed.
He said to you the event he ran.
Well, he named the event he ran, the track, the high school, the other people on my dad's team, which were names I recognized. Dick Fisk was a name. Once you hear Dick Fisk, you don't forget that.
That's right.
And so I knew he starts there, and Louis Chubiowski or something, but they were names that I had heard my father say. Mm-hmm. And so I knew, and it was an amazing, I was just like, oh my, wow. He's like, you tell him, Dick Fisk and Chubiowski and blah, 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 blah. And I say, I will, Mr. Dunn. And I didn't want to, blow the moment and kind of tell him, well, he passed away a few months ago. But yeah, it was, and we got it on video. And so Brian's seen it many times. It pops up on YouTube every once in a while. Yeah. And it was a really amazing, and Bruce Dern apparently has a great memory because I've been told that, or I've heard other people say that, Tarantino say that and stuff like that. But that was pretty.
That's incredible.
And that was a crazy week between Oprah one night and Dern another night. And Robert Redford was there that week too.
I was just going to ask you. I figured we'd wait till later. I was just going to ask if you've interviewed Robert Redford. That's so fucking crazy.
I've gotten Redford a couple times, I think. And he's very nice.
Yeah.
He was very, very nice. When I was interviewing him, Winter Soldier hadn't come out yet. But it was close. We were just a few months away. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him about Winter Soldier because the Russos had kept talking that it was going to be similar, or they had used 3 Days of the Condor as sort of a
template
influence. Yeah, template influence. And so I was trying to get him to talk about Winter Soldier. And I brought up that the Russo brothers, said that they were inspired by Condor. And he's like, Oh, I don't know about any of that, but I really wanted to see how these Marvel movies are made. Because I think I had posed it like, is that what got you interested in the film? The fact that it's sort of a 70s spy kind of. He's like, I don't know about any of that. He could care less, but he's like, I wanted to see how they make these movies. He's like, I had seen Iron Man. My kids showed me Iron Man or something. He's like, and I wanted to be a part of these. And I thought that was really, really. I mean, it says a lot about what a brilliant filmmaker and Hollywood guy he is. And I think Michael Douglas had a similar response to why he wanted to be in part of a Marvel movie. Because they'll tell you that it's, the acting's different. You know what I mean? It's not as much about acting, but they wanted to see how this money is made, these costumes, the sets, and all these like big things. And I think that's really, great for Redford and Michael Douglas and some of those guys. I want to see how it works.
Sherry McCrone's prom date makes all the props for the Marvel Universe.
Oh, okay.
Russell Bobbitt.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So
did he make Mjolnir?
what's that?
What's Mjolnir? What's Mjolnir?
What is that?
Mjolnir is the name of Thor's hammer.
Yeah, he makes everything.
Tripping.
He makes everything.
Mjolnir's in the corner.
I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but he makes everything.
Yeah.
He's been in charge of the props. He made
Jeremy Renner's bow and arrow.
Yeah, he's got an enormous warehouse, and
Yeah.
he moved to Atlanta. His son works with him, which is awesome. And
Brian,
Are you worthy though, Brian? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that you're worthy.
Careful.
I
You'll
don't
get
know
your
that
arm
you're
bit off.
worthy. Yeah. So I have one of those autographed by Stan Lee.
Dang.
Well, really?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because when one of those days that we were doing stuff with him, they were just like, if you have stuff you want him to sign, you just bring it in.
He
had a stack. He had a stack of not old. I mean, they were recent Marvel. They weren't like classic Marvel comics, but they were just a stack of within the last couple of years, but just a bunch of comics. Just so that, if you come into the office, he can sign just one of these comics and give it to you.
Yeah.
So I think next time I want to talk about is Giancarlo Esposito the most underrated actor in Hollywood?
I mean, was it one time? I think he's getting the credit he deserves in recent years.
You ever see that TV show? It was a, younger people's show for maybe your age. The Get Down about the rappers in the Bronx in the 80s.
Oh, no, but I
he
know the
plays
show you're talking
a
about.
pastor in it.
Okay.
It's fucking awesome. It's a little thing that most
He's
people know.
great
him
on
from.
The Boys, great in Breaking Bad, great in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
So
He's no Titus Welliver, but he's pretty good.
well, thank you. Thank you. For
No. They're both excellent
Negative
actors.
at the end of the show.
They're both
Thanks for
excellent.
bringing that
I
up.
just wanted to put into how much I love Titus Welliver, but they're both excellent.
Titus Welliver is fantastic. You and I talked about it, going back to NYPD Blue,
Yep.
playing the doctor there. I thought he was
Blue, New
great
York
then.
Undercover. Yeah.
So
Deadwood, all that stuff.
Riff Raff.
Yeah.
He's no Jami Philbrick.
Once in a life.
Riff Raff.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
but okay.
Before we finish, any socials or anything you want to promote beyond Movie Phone?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we just went through that Movie Phone does not have an app. I believe that's what happened.
Go ahead.
That's right. They don't have an app, but they're on.
Why don't they have an app? I think that's your job when you get out of here.
No,
Get a fucking app.
We don't need an app. But moviephone.com, you can read it.
You must be older than you
No,
look.
it's mobile. You just go to moviephone.com on your phone or whatever device you choose. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Philbrick. And then please check out moviephone.com for all your showtimes, reviews, and movie news.
And is there a Philbrick character out there somewhere?
Ah, yes.
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Philbrick. Well, so my last
Philbrick.
name is Philbrick, and a good friend of mine, Benjamin Jaganoff, who goes by the name of B. Earl, is a writer for Marvel Comics and is Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas writing partner. And the two of them wrote Werewolf by Night, 4-issue series for Marvel 2 years ago, which is being made into a Disney Plus Halloween special starring Garcia.
Gail Garcia.
Gail Garcia, yes. So he's starring in the series, which is the directorial debut, the composer of the Batman and Incredibles and Michael Giacchino. Yeah, so he's the Oscar-winning composer. I believe he won for Up, but he will make his directorial debut directing the Halloween special of Werewolf by Night, based on this series that my friend wrote. And in it, there is a character. We don't know that he'll make it to the Halloween special, but in this Marvel series, there is a character named Dr. Philbrick, and he looks shockingly like me. And so, yeah, I hope that that character gets So I am a character in Marvel Comics, and only can hope that someday Bradley Cooper will play me in the film.
There you go. Yeah. All right, Benjamin,
boys,
Jamie,
it's been excellent.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
I hope you don't have any lasting scars.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. That's all right.
Not like I don't have enough already.
Exactly.
This is not a blank canvas we're working with here.